Well, you must be clapping for the introduction because I haven't said anything yet. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. As Chris mentioned, I'm Ron King. I'm not a native Oregonian, but a native Northwesterner. Came from Spokane, went to school in Pullman. So I'm a cougar. I'm not a duck or a beaver, which is, I think, an advantage, actually, in this town. I don't have to pledge my allegiance either way. However, if you're the only cougar, you do know who the duck and the beaver fans are because they always want to bet you on every game because I think I'm the only cougar they know. And so I can't dodge them, but I'm not one of them. So I'd like to thank Montos. You know, I've been here a couple times to listen and once before to speak, and the scones are so outstanding. I think that's why everybody comes, and then the speaker just kind of follows along. So I'd like to thank Montos, and I'd like to thank Roger personally for inviting me. I appreciate the invitation. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was leadership and just leadership-related issues and some of the things that I've kind of observed as my career has moved around. And primarily with the idea that I had some preconceived notions of what leadership was. And I grew up in a family that was in the food business. My granddad was in it, my dad was in it, I'm in it, all in different kind of areas and stuff like that. And my dad was an executive, and so I grew up with kind of a role model in that regard. And so I had formulated a lot of these things, and then I learned a few things in Pullman about business, not that many, but a few. And so I had this idea, and then as I advanced in my career, a lot of them seemed a little different from what I was expecting. And so I started keeping track. And I'm one of these people who writes stuff down. And so I started a file, and then the file got bigger and bigger, and now the file's about half a drawer. And I go through it a couple times a year with the intent to weed it out and throw things away. And I always end up with maybe only 1 or 2 pieces of paper going away. And it all seems so kind of interesting to me. So what I've done is summarize those. And the topic uses the word myth, and I'm thinking that that's maybe not the right way to do it because a myth would imply that maybe things aren't true. And what these really are things that I kind of expected or had learned or had heard about, and then my experience. And so I'll start with that. You know, Webster defines a leader, interestingly, as a commanding authority or an influence with paramount responsibility. It seems rather ominous. And I don't really, maybe not quite so ominous in my regard. So I've redefined it as anyone who sets the direction, sets the pace, sets the example, and takes the responsibility. So my definition is maybe not so heavy on authority and more on setting the pace, setting the direction, setting the example, and taking the responsibility. My view of leadership is fairly inclusive. There's leaders right here at Montos. Somebody takes the lead every day here. There's leaders in the community. There's leaders in your neighborhood. There's leaders in your churches. There's leaders in business, obviously. That's kind of the common bond that we all have, is that we are in business. My wife does a fabulous job of leading our family, you know, 99% of the time. So there's leadership things everywhere. So, you know, don't think necessarily in terms of just career application here. There's the opportunity to be a leader in many different spots. One of the quotes that I wrote down, and I wish I could attribute it to somebody, I don't know where I got it, but all progress requires leadership. I thought, you know, that's an interesting deal there. You can go throughout history, and anything that's progressive, anything that's led or is additive requires leadership. So with that in mind, what I've thought I'd do is follow kind of a format of if it is good to this, then it's better to do this. So it should flow. I think you'll catch on right away. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is it's good to go and get there first, and you know, speed is of the essence. And in many industries that's the case for product development and marketing and competitive advantage. But in leadership issues, I think it's better to be patient for short periods of time because speed creates mistakes. It's been my experience that mistakes are probably the most costly thing in our business. When we make mistakes, and often when I look at the mistakes we've made, they've been created by speed. So things that in our hurry, we drop the ball. And mistakes are in business, at least at Western Family, are similar to turnovers in sports. At the end of the day, they really do cost you a lot of money and a lot of time. The second one is it's good to know all that you can possibly know. You know, this is one of those things I thought, hey, you know, and I think it's better to have common sense to know what you don't know. And I've found that helps you manage other people and lead other people. I believe that humility, more times than not, is a positive. So if you can admit what you don't know, it's better than speaking about what you do know. It's good to be really good at something. You know, I thought, hey, yeah, you gotta be really good at something, you gotta excel. I think it's better to be competent at lots of things. And variety is the spice of life, and I believe even in business that learning and experience is our best teacher. And this leads me to the experiences that I've had in various jobs by being kind of jack of all trades, master of none, has helped me solve problems in other opportunities that I've had. So I think broad experience is a positive rather than being siloed in one particular spot. It's good to manage win-win situations. There's been a lot of authoring and books and different philosophies on creating win-win situations, and it's good to be able to manage those. I think it's better to actually manage lose-lose situations. One of the kind of little surprises that greeted me when I moved to the corner office was that all the easy decisions have been made. Yeah. And I'd spent my career making them, and yet it shouldn't have been a surprise. And then all of a sudden you get these lose-lose decisions that you get to make. And they aren't fun. You don't have any real background in that. You don't know, you really don't want to make the decision because it's lose-lose, right? And either way, you're going to lose. That has been difficult. So I think it's better to learn how to manage lose-lose situations. They're often more challenging. It's good to take charge, call shots, and be in control. I believe it's better to embrace growth through less control. This is one of those things that isn't intuitive, or at least wasn't to me, that actually the more you let go of a situation, the better it becomes. My probably nature is to want to gather it up and know more about it, you know, quiz people down, things like that, and that hasn't, I believe that less control actually allows growth to happen. Control kind of stymies growth, becomes kind of an hourglass or a pinch, a bottleneck, or whatever you want to call it. And that will hinder your leadership opportunities. It's good to build obedience to the corporate plan. And that's another one of those things they teach you in school, and your first 2 or 3 bosses will drill into you, hey, we got the plan. You know, we got the plan, we got the budget, whatever you want to call it. I believe it's better to build loyalty to a cause because it releases passion. And this is one of the things that we're trying to transition a little better to at Western Family. If you look back and just kind of take the big view of what we do, we feed people and give them the opportunity to save some money. We sell private label food products, and they're typically, often always, cheaper than the branded merchandise, and mostly because of marketing expenses and things like that that the brands build into their pricing. So the food's just as nutritious, the quality is just as good, but yet we give people the opportunity to save money. Well, that resonates better at Western Family with our employees. They're willing to dedicate themselves to that cause more so than they are to the plan or the budget or the numbers, which are constantly changing and updating, things like that. So it's good to have leaders who are certain. And I believe it's better to have leaders who are clear about risk, because I haven't found that there is any certainty. And just about the time you think you've made the right decision, something moves. The old who moved the cheese, and boom, you're no longer certain about your decision. You're second guessing what on Tuesday what you thought was a certainty on Monday. But all tough decisions basically involve trading off risk, you know, when you manage. So I believe that if you're clear about risk, comfortable with risk, that's better than being certain. It's good to provide as much direction as possible, and I think it's better to ask as many questions as possible. I've found that providing direction starts the debate of, well, should we or should we not? Asking questions involves other people, draws out their own thinking. I think people are more interested in participating when they're asked rather than told. So if it's good to have people working for you, it's better to be working for your direct reports. And this is pretty obvious. I think a lot of people have seen the inverted organizational chart and things like that. But it does become more apparent when you really do have the tools to make them successful. So why would you withhold the tools that you have in your control to make them successful? So I think that's a good thing. It's good to be really smart. That's one of the things that people drill into you. You keep grade point averages and people compete academically. But I think it's better to be of good character. That people tend to follow people who are of good character rather than maybe intellectual capacity. Not saying that they're opposed to one another. You can have both if you're fortunate. I'm not so fortunate, so I work on the character side. But I tell a funny story. I had the opportunity to go to Stanford for an extended summer thing back in 1995, which was a great opportunity for me. I hadn't been to school for many years, and I was down there, and there's about 150 of us, and we were split into groups, and it was great learning. Exposure to Stanford faculty is, of course, really a treat. And this one guy taught finance for 3 days. He was very, very skilled and a top professor at Stanford and on a bunch of boards. And he said, I know all you business types. You're sitting there saying, if at the end of the 3 days, he said, if this guy up here teaching us is so smart, how come he's not rich? How come he teaches? And he says, I know all you guys are sitting back there thinking that. And he said, so let me just tell you why I teach. He says, I'm on all these boards and startups, and I've had students start billion-dollar corporations in the Silicon Valley, and I go to these board meetings, and I sit around the whole day with all these really rich guys. And he says, and I say to myself driving home, and I ask my wife, if these guys are so rich, how come they're not smart? So I think that's a good lesson there, that you can be really smart, you can be of good character. A few that I've added in the last couple of years is, as I've watched, probably the most important thing when someone comes out of school, the choice they make to go to work, they always are, I talk to some people like that, and they're always kind of freaked out about, well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to work? And what industry and all this? And they seem to be so focused on industry. I tell them the biggest question you got to ask is, you want to work for a small company or a big company? Because that's probably the most important thing from my aspect is, small companies are loaded with personalities and big companies are loaded with politics. And you're going to like one or the other. And in a small company, and I consider Western Family a small company, if I show up late or if I go to the dentist, pretty much everybody knows about it. You do that at Intel or Nike, nobody knows about it. The cube could be empty for months, and it's, where's Ron? Has anybody seen Ron lately? Maybe we should call his wife. But it's good to have an internal sponsor to manage your career. I started out the first 3 years I went to work, I worked in a big company, and it was very important to get somehow aligned with a mentor or a sponsor, to kind of help manage your career, kind of tug you up or whatever, however that would work. And then I quickly realized it's probably, if it's good to have that, it's better to take responsibility for your own career. And in the end, you are really the only one who cares about you the most. And you're the only one, more importantly, who knows what you require and what you really need. And it's pretty rare when an employee will be totally honest with what their hopes and desires and needs and fears are with a boss, and have that boss really be able to meet those and satisfy those. So I do believe that it's good to have an internal sponsor. It's probably better to take responsibility for your own career. I was always taught that to remember your history or you're bound to repeat it. It's good to remember history or you're bound to repeat it. I believe that it's actually better to remember that the past has no future. A guy told me that a couple of years ago, and it has really stuck with me, is that circumstances are always different. Something is always a little bit different. We have some friends that go camping every year, the same weekend in the same place, all that. And, but the campsite's different every year. Something has changed. The weather's different, the camp's different, their circumstances are different or whatever. So the past really has no future. So it's good to respect the past and to learn from the past, but don't expect the past to repeat itself exactly the same. And we try to do that at Western Family. A lot of deals have similar feel to them and everything else, and somebody will say, oh yeah, well, but remember last year when we did this, but it's never quite the same as last year. So I always am saying, well, yeah, let's remember that. What did we learn from it? But let's move forward. Let's look to the future rather than try and recreate the past. It's good to get everyone on the same page in the exact same direction. I think that's important, but it's better to have everybody go in the same speed. What I found is little differences in direction, we still end up getting there, but differences in speed, we never seem to get there. And there's a great book out, it's years ago published, called The Goal. I'm sure many of you have read it, but the bottom line of The Goal is you can only go as fast as the slowest person in your party. And it talks about some Boy Scouts on a hike and some other things, and common in manufacturing and things like that, but you're only as strong as the weakest link, whatever you want to call that concept. But it's true at Western Family, if we get everybody going the same speed, we get there a lot faster than if we have everybody going on the exact same direction. Because you're always only going as fast as the slowest person. And so if you can keep that slowest person up to speed at the speed of the pack, then the pack moves a lot more efficiently. So it's good to deeply understand your industry and know your company. That's probably true. But I believe that it's better to study and learn about other industries, especially other business models. There is so much out there that you can learn from other experiences. Rather than trying to spend your time perfecting the one that you're in, you can learn a lot from other situations that you can borrow or steal or whatever, as long as it's legal, and apply to your situation. There's numerous things I could expand on here. We, Western Family, we have about 400 suppliers and only 9 customers. They're large grocery warehouses. They're owned by their retailers, and the warehouses who are our customers, own all the stock in Western Family. So in essence, but almost by definition, we'd be a cooperative. Well, a cooperative business model is totally upside down from the regular for-profit business model. But yet the two have some things that can build on each other and strengthen the other ones. And I have a buddy of mine who spent his life, he's retired now, but he spent his life in the for-profit world, and he looks at me like, how can you even go to work in that? You know, and I say, well, you know, this is better, and this is better, and this is not so good, and this is not so good. So there's a lot of learning that you can do that you can borrow from other situations. I think it's a real positive to get involved in nonprofit work or community service of some kind, because you take the nonprofit business model, and most people think it's upside down, and it has got some weaknesses to it, but there's a lot of things in the most nonprofit model that you can apply in the for-profit corporation very successfully. You can do some great learning, you can provide a ton of service to the community, and you can actually benefit your own career by serving in a nonprofit. You'd be surprised, you'll learn more than you end up given out of that situation. It's good to celebrate your victories, but it's better to celebrate your wins and your losses. I think you do end up learning more in defeat, probably. You're a little more honest, a little more probably heated, a little more angry, a little more jilted, a little more everything when you lose. And I haven't found anybody that hasn't admitted that difficult times are a part of life, you know, and that you can learn more from your difficult situations than you will from your victories. So it's good to celebrate those victories, but it's also good to celebrate your losses, because they will teach you something, you know, and claim that as a positive in the defeat. It's good to invest in yourself and your development, but it's better to invest in others. And I think that that's kind of intuitive, but it's not all that easy to do, because we get busy managing our own careers, we get busy managing the tasks of work that we have on our desktop, and we forget that part of part of that is that we're meant to invest in others and help them develop their careers and help them push the company forward. Anything that you can do for a person that helps develop their career will trickle down into their personal life as well. Often we find that as people grow, even outside of work, they do better at work, or vice versa. As they grow at work, they end up doing better outside of work. So essentially what some of the things that I try to separate leadership from is you've got your working, your supervising, and your managing, and then you've got these leadership issues, which really do center around the idea of what you're doing for others, not just what you're doing for yourself. I think for people who are in mid-career, that's probably the most difficult transition, is you work your way through a company or up a company by task-oriented achievement, you know, and you're working, you're supervising, you're managing. But then you're asked to step into a leadership position, and many of the skills that you've developed that are task-oriented don't transition to leadership. In fact, many of the skills that made you maybe a little selfish or a little successful in the task side work against you on the leadership side. And so at mid-level, or at mid-career, there's this jump that people have to make to become leaders that is a difficult one. And I think many people don't perceive it or aren't prepared for it, and many aren't successful at it because of that. Because all of the things that you've done to be successful in your career now have to be re-examined. Some have to be flipped totally upside down in order to make other people successful. And I think that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to transition. So the last thing I wanted to share with you is I keep track of things that I think people have in common. And that's part of the file. And I've got, I guess, a little more than maybe 9 or 10 of them that I've observed. When I see someone that I would like to follow, I try and figure out why. What is it that I'm drawn to here? Why is it that these people have my attention and my loyalty? And so these are just traits that I've put down, things I've observed in people that maybe leaders seem to have in common. And it doesn't mean that every leader has every one of them or that anybody is void of any of them, but these are the things. These come from people, let's see, my dad is on this list, some people I've worked for, a couple of business people in town that I admire. I have one of my grandmas is on the list. Luis Palau, who's an evangelist. I don't know if you know of Luis, but he's kind of the Billy Graham of Latin America. He happens to live here in Portland, which is kind of a well-kept secret. But anyway, these are people that I've admired over the years, and I've tried to figure out, okay, what is it what am I drawn to here? The first thing would be a strong moral compass, knowing the difference between right and wrong. People have different standards for right and wrong, but you have to have a strong compass for that, knowing the difference between right and wrong. Malcolm Marsh, who's a federal circuit court judge and has spoken here, I noticed his DVDs in the back. He spoke, one time I listened to him speak on ethics, and it was a hot topic, ethics. Everybody wants to talk about ethics. His point was ethics is just the application of a moral code. And so then the real debate is just what's the moral code? Is it the Judeo-Christian model? Is it the somebody else's model? What's the difference? That ethics is just the application of morality, basically. So a strong moral compass. The close cousin to it is honesty. I haven't met too many people that are dishonest that other people really want to follow. So the third thing would be a bias towards action and not analysis. We get bogged down periodically at work with analysis because you're trying to manage that last little piece of risk out. And there comes a point when most leaders say enough. And it's usually before the analysis people want to give up, if you know what I mean. And so at some point somebody says enough, that's it. We're not going to analyze this anymore. We're going to make a decision. So you have to have a bias towards action. Good communication skills. I guess that's probably an obvious. Most people who inspire others or who have the attention of others are able to communicate. A competitive spirit, I put down, and this probably takes just a little bit of explanation. Competitive spirit, not in the sense of I've got to win, but in the sense of that I tend to never give up. I've found that most people who are effective leaders, they don't quit very easily. And so in a competitive spirit sense, it's the not quitting, not the I got to win thing. There's a difference there. Most leaders enjoy problem solving, the ones that I'm aware of. They look at it as kind of a game or a puzzle, or problem solving is something that they actually get a thrill out of, because a lot of leadership is problem solving. If you really don't like problem solving, that can be difficult. A history of consistency, I guess that's not surprising. Most people want some predictability in the people that they're following. Creative. At first I didn't think that this would be something that I would necessarily put on a list of leaders, but I've noticed that most of the people that I admire are extremely creative people, and that leads to problem solving success. And they're really, new problems require, and tomorrow's problems require something different than what we know today. So creativity and problem solving is, I've learned to look for, especially when we hire people. I'm interested in their, creative, explain to me creative solutions in the past, things that you've drawn on. Because problem solving is all about creativity. They have a passion for what they do. I think that's fairly obvious. And then what we talked about a little bit before, enjoy seeing others succeed. It's not usually all about themselves, that for whatever reason they're interested in seeing other people succeed. So those are the things that I've observed, some of the it's good to and then it's better to, and then some of the kind of traits or I guess commonality that some of the leaders that I admired have. I think that the thing that I would leave you with is you've got to start somewhere. If you're in mid-career or if you're starting or even if you're at the twilight of your career, if you want to expand your leadership, you have to start somewhere. And not often do you have control of it within your work environment. So I would tell you to really look outside of the work environment, look inside your home, look inside your community. The nonprofit world is just screaming for people who want to be involved, who have good decision-making skills, and I believe probably all of you do. You know, churches have a need. There's all sorts of opportunities to experience leadership, to take a bite out of the apple and strengthen your skills. And I think you'll be surprised how transferable all this is back to your career. So one of the things you might do is sit down and be honest with yourself. One of the things I do, you know, part of my assessment of myself is I'm constantly saying, hey, you know, what do I need to do better? What can I improve on? You know, I dropped the ball here and I picked it up over here. Part of it goes back to my faith. I have a strong personal faith. I think that helps you be honest with yourself. There's some great examples spiritually that you can integrate into your family life and into your work life. There's some great examples biblically even of leadership issues. You know, Moses, Daniel, Job, Joseph, David, Jonathan, Paul, Christ. There's a number of spots in the Bible where you can examine how people handled situations either successfully or unsuccessfully. I meet with a group of other CEOs, which has proved to be extremely beneficial to me. We meet once a month downtown, talk about all sorts of different issues. We always have a topic, and we always stray from the topic, which is why we're CEOs. And that makes us qualified. We can't stay focused, I guess. But you know, that's been extremely helpful to me too, to be able to interact with other people who are in the same boat. So find people who are in the same boat and share with them. And then I just have a group of personal buddies. Some of them are in business, many of them aren't. That you know I can talk to about different things and say, hey, do you think that this is really true or not true? And you can bounce things off and purify things that way. So I think if you get involved in a group where you can learn and be honest with yourself, and you get involved in a spot where you can practice, whether it be at work or in the community or things like that, then you will have a chance to hone your leadership skills and get an opportunity to make a difference in terms of being a leader of something, not just a participant. So I'll leave you with that all progress does require leadership, and that someone has to set the pace, someone has to set the example, someone has to set the direction, and someone has to take the responsibility. So I would encourage you to give that a try, and I'd be happy to take any questions or answer anything that I can. I probably am better at answering questions about the food business than I am about leadership, but you've all already eaten. So thank you for your attention, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So, any questions, or anybody want to add to my list for me here? I'm not beyond plagiarizing. So, yeah, sure.
Well, what I put down pretty key is treat others with respect. Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes with enjoying seeing others succeed, but I think that's really a great trait to have when you're trying to develop people or get them involved, is really they want to be treated as equals.
Right. Yeah, the comment is treating people with respect, and that has an impact, and I would agree with that entirely. You know, there are certain things that just you see are true, and that is whatever you give to somebody, you're going to get back. I mean, it really is true, and yet it seems against our nature to want to give to that person or whatever. And I think I've had bosses who have taken the energy out of me, and I've had bosses who've put energy into me. And I'll tell you, you have a much different experience when people are investing energy in you. And certainly I believe the outcome to the organization is better too. So no, that's a fabulous comment. The respect is something that is quite valuable. So any other questions or comments? Yeah, sure.
It seems that you have over the years had great opportunities to develop yourself and have created your treasure chest of half a drawer of tidbits. of, making them available, public, write something?
Do I have any plans to make them available? Well, if there was a photocopier available at Montos, you could have them today for no royalty or fee. No, I've never considered myself, expert in any of this. I get the opportunity periodically. I've spoken at PSU a number of times to the graduate school students about different things, and they seem at a very curious time in life, and so I think they absorb this. But I'm happy to provide them to Roger, and Roger can make them available to people. But no, I don't have any plans to get out of the food business. I'm in shallow water here with this stuff. So
That's good for the brain and for the soul.
yeah, there you go. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, sure.
A quick question. Could we have your notes and make them available
Sure.
on our website?
Yeah, could you have the notes? I'll summarize them and get them in some kind of a Word document form and forward them to you, Roger, and then you can do with them what you like. Okay, professionallyspeaking.org. They'll be linked there. When, Roger? 2 days after I get them to him. How's that? Okay. Yeah, sure.
I get the sense that you saved us all a great deal of time assembling a half file drawer.
Yeah.
And I want to compliment your direction.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Have I saved anybody any time? Yeah, I'd probably save you some time. Again, the quality aspect of it is debatable, but I don't have the best memory, so I like writing things down, and I have entire articles in that drawer that only are highlighted maybe 3 or 4 spots, and that's where I need to do is to narrow it down a little bit. But I tend not to collect stuff for the most part, but for whatever reason, if the building was on fire, I'd head for that drawer. Try and, yeah. Or maybe to professionallyspeaking.org and get it back, part of it, yeah, if there's a fire. Yeah, so no, I appreciate that. But yeah, I would encourage you, if you come across something that resonates with you, save it, because there's stuff in there that is pretty old and still got some value to me. So yeah, sure, Richard.
You talked about being better to manage lose-lose situation. Is the objective there to minimize the pain on both sides, or is that?
The question is, lose-lose situations, do you manage to minimize the pain on both sides? I think, that's part of it. I think you always want to try and, lose-lose. What's a lose-lose, I guess, would be the best thing. Somebody comes into me where we've made a mistake, and we have the chance to lose $25,000 or $30,000, or hack off a customer. So there's your choices. You can keep the money and have an angry customer, or you can lose the money and have a happy customer. Neither one of those are all that palatable. 25 grand's a lot of money, and an angry customer is something that could be timeless. So, you never manage the risk down, or you never make everybody happy. There are times when I feel like I'm an umpire in baseball where half the stadium is going to be upset and the other half is going to want to, vote me for mayor. So I think what you do there is communication is important. The customer needs to know, even if you're going to take the write-off, that there was pain involved on the company side. If you're going to choose the economic benefit to the company and hack off the customer, then communication to the customer is probably doubly important. So the lose-lose thing, I think as long as you're honest with people that this is untenable on either side, is the best thing you can do. But you're not going to avoid the loss. I mean, it's by definition a lose-lose deal. And unfortunately, that as you become more responsible for projects and for people, then those are more the types of decisions that come to your desk. And I thought sitting in the corner was just going to be approving everybody's bonuses, and hadn't turned out that way. so anyway, I would say you work the risk down, but you need to communicate to either side that it's not a pretty picture. So, any other questions or observations? Sure.
You mentioned nonprofits a lot. Are you involved in other nonprofits or other businesses like that? Or?
Yeah, nonprofits. The question is, what about nonprofits? A wise guy told me one time that if you work for these nonprofits, you'll be able to draw a lot of learning and experience out of that. You'll be able to apply to your own career in the food business. And I joke with everybody that the food business is the largest nonprofit in the world. Yeah, I talk to these high-tech guys and friends of mine at Nike and stuff, and margins of 40 and 50%, and I go to bed like in fairyland. But no, the margins in food are super low, so I joke about it being nonprofit. But I've been involved at Portland State, Legacy Hospital System, currently involved in Loaves and Fishes, and Northwest Medical Teams, which is in the process of changing their name to Medical Teams International. Professionally speaking, different things, different opportunities as they come along. I kind of have a rule that, I've broken it once to be involved in the 3, but I do trade my time for money at Western Family, and so you can't be overly busy outside of that. But involved in 2 has worked well for me, and I can't tell you how many things I've learned in the nonprofit world that I've been able to apply at Western Family, and just in my personal growth, and the number of really well-meaning, serving-oriented people that you meet. So any time that you have, whether it's youth baseball or anything, it doesn't matter, I would strongly encourage you, if you have the opportunity, as long as it doesn't take too much away from your job or too much away from your own family, it's a great thing to do. I guarantee you, I'll buy you lunch if you don't get more out of it than you put into it. So very interesting. Yeah, Deb.
What have you done in your company to sort of perpetuate a culture that encourages sort of excellence in work, but this whole issue of balance and serving, and sometimes there's a lot of
tension there. Yeah. The question is, what have we tried to do at Western Family to try and encourage this balance in the serving and things like that? We have a lot of different opportunities. We encourage people to serve wherever they feel comfortable serving. We have a lot of people who have kids, so they have a lot of activity in youth sports and things like that, where people are coaching or whatever, things like that. We kind of turn the cheek the other way in terms of time they might miss to do that. We've encouraged supervisors, and many of our supervisors maybe aren't in that stage of life, so they are not maybe thrilled about having an employee leave early to coach or things like that. We've encouraged our supervisors to just say, hey, you're going to have a better employee. I find that people who take time off, are more than happy to come back and make up their work or have their work done before they leave. They understand that there's a trade-off here, that they're the beneficiary of something that's basically free to them. We don't keep track of the hours in that regard. We ask employees to make up the time. We have donated. Personally, I think a lot of people in the company watch where the company resources go in terms of philanthropy and things like that. So we try to draw attention that people know where we've given. We don't talk about money and sizes of gift and things like that, and we try not to brag about that. Almost everything we give, other than things that are food related, we give anonymously. We don't really see that we're not in it for Western Family's sake. We're in it for the benefit of where we're giving. So I've encouraged our executive staff, people who have been successful managers, to get involved in some kind of a leadership level at nonprofits, and many of them do. Again, they're managers, they get their work done. I don't quiz them down. I'm curious where they're headed, but I don't ask them for how much time or anything like that. And many of them are pretty successful at some of these nonprofits. So I think, part of it is setting an example, and part of it is then having a culture that doesn't penalize people. You can over-encourage it too. I don't want you to think that we are just pushing people out the door to go serve at the nonprofit. But we're certainly not penalizing them, and we are encouraging them. So, yeah. Sure.
You mentioned the importance of good character and a strong moral compass in your organization. Can you tell us about a period of time or a situation where there was a conflict? Maybe where business opportunity affected the moral stature of a particular individual or of a company, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, the question is strong moral compass. How does that weave through the business, and when has there been a conflict, and what was the outcome? We're in the buying and selling business. We take large warehouses, these are large businesses themselves, one's $3 billion. We take them and we aggregate their purchasing volume in order to make it more competitive in the food business. Food business is scale oriented. If you're not huge, you're just not in the game. And so we take smaller companies, leverage their buying power in order to be more successful in getting them the right prices to be competitive. That being said, when you buy and sell every day, there's an opportunity to disrupt the moral compass, because a lot of these suppliers will do just about anything to get our business. You know, I'm not saying they're coming in bribing us or anything like that, but there's a lot of opportunity for our buying staff to be swayed by less than honest deals. And so, you know, it's just something that you have to draw a line on. That's, I think, pretty obvious example. The outcomes have been, you know, I haven't heard of any where we've stepped over the line. I've had buyers come to me and say, hey, this is compelling. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars available here if we want to make a decision, you know, to the left rather than to the right. And you just can't cross the line. You have to be willing to stand up and say, hey, you know, what's right's right and what's wrong's wrong. And not be willing. It's easy for me to do that with our employee. It's less, the standard is, am I willing to do it with our ownership and say, we turned down this money for the following reasons. And so I think that's, you know, in the buying and selling game where you're negotiating all day long, there's tons of opportunity to cross the line. We had some situations where we had some inter-office romance issues that were difficult for me to try and decide what is right and what's wrong. That's a slippery line there. They weren't reporting to one another, but they were disruptive to some other employees in their department. And you know, that took a long while for us to weave through, and I'm still not sure that we did the right thing. So, you know, that's one of those deals where nobody was real happy in the end, including me. And but, you know, so that's another one where, you know, right and wrong was tested by individuals. It really wasn't a business application, it was more a personal application, but it did spill over into the business and became a business issue. So those are maybe two that come to mind right away. So, any other questions? Chris is going to cut me off here. So, yeah.
By the idea of getting everybody to go at the same speed, because every company has gazelles, people who really are out there.
Sure.
And you've always got a few turtles.
Right.
You're not trying to slow down the gazelles, or you're trying to speed up the turtles. How do you do that?
You know, slowing down the gazelles hasn't been, the question is, everybody has different speeds, fast people and slow people, and how do you try to get people going the same speed? Do you slow down the speedy ones or speed up the slow ones? I haven't found that slowing anybody down has ever been beneficial, unless they're making mistakes. And it's kind of it's a very similar argument to public education. You know, do you take the high achieving kids and drop them back into the regular classroom, or do you know? So I try to focus on the turtles and say, hey, here are the benefits to moving faster. Here are the benefits to the company. Here's the benefit to you. Are you comfortable going at this speed? You know, why are you going slower? Are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of the risk? Do you think you're going to, you know, make a bad decision? Or are you, you know, paranoid? You're trying to get that last little piece of risk out before you move. And you know, teams just don't move faster than the slowest person. And it's frustrating for the gazelles, and the turtles are very happy. And so, you know, I focus on the turtles. Personally, I haven't found any reason to slow down the gazelles. It's a whole lot harder to, you know, I'd much rather have to tell somebody to slow down than to kick them in the rear. So I'm always trying to keep people going quicker and quicker rather than slowing them down. But that's just my own personal view. Anybody else? Okay, thanks again. I appreciate it.